Mission Verde is a model for how San Francisco can harness the power of people and community to create a more green, sustainable, and equitable city. The story of how Mission Verde came to be is an important one for city leadership and public advocates to understand. The story of what Mission Verde has become, however, is even more meaningful. Mission Verde was formed in 2020. It did not start as a feel-good initiative for people who just wanted to make San Francisco greener. It was part of a negotiated agreement when the city proposed to cut down nearly every single tree along 24th Street between Mission and Potrero, quite literally a clear cut through the heart of the Latinx Calle 24 cultural corridor. The community pushed back on that proposal, but we didn't just stand in opposition. We brought solutions to the table. And at the end of a long, arduous, and often tense process between community organizers and public works, we reached a resolution with a set of agreements. 1. Instead of removing 78 trees, Public Works would remove only 33, and the rest would be pruned. 2. Of the trees that were removed, the community would have access to that wood, the first example of wood reuse as called for in the city's 2014 Urban Forest Plan. 3. The community would have an opportunity to grieve its trees, which it did on the following Dia de los Muertos, the city's unofficial first tree funeral. 4. Newly planted trees would feature the colors of the cultural corridor on its cross braces. And finally, volunteers would water newly planted trees, thus freeing up more than 2/3 of Public Works' replanting budget and allowing the city to plant 3 times more trees in an historically disadvantaged minority community that already suffered disparate levels of air pollution. This group of volunteer waterers became known as Mission Verde, officially a project of Calle 24's Quality of Life Subcommittee. And since April 2021, volunteer tree waterers have watered nearly 150 trees along the 24th Street corridor by hand every single week. When we first started watering, neighbors who didn't know us were curious, sometimes suspicious, sometimes critical. Over time, however, we have become a thread helping to make this community even stronger. We speak to one another in many languages. Parents stop and point out what we are doing to their children. Some of us water trees with our spouses and friends. People have planted the seeds of native flowers in our tree wells. In the simple act of watering trees, we have found a small way to bridge the divides our world creates between cultures, languages, and generations. Mission Verde began as a response to a crisis. And what it has shown is that addressing crisis can start with the simple act of watering a tree and grow into a city that becomes more green, sustainable, and equitable for all.